A teen living on the streets came to my bookstore for a job. Her mom's name uncovered my son's 16-year truth. The bookstore sat on a narrow street that most people walked past without noticing. The sign above the door was old and a little faded, but the windows were always clean. Inside, the air smelled like paper, dust, and warm tea. The owner had run this place for many years. She was no longer young, but not old either. Her days followed the same gentle pattern. She unlocked the door each morning, turned on the lights one by one, and brewed a small pot of tea behind the counter. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. She lived alone above the shop in a small apartment. Her son had moved away years ago, and her husband was no longer part of her life. The bookstore had become her world. She knew where every book sat, even the ones customers rarely touched. She liked the quiet. It gave her time to think, though she tried not to think too much about the past. Most days were slow. A few regular customers stopped by, people who loved books and calm places. Sometimes tourists wandered in, looked around for a few minutes, and left. The owner greeted everyone with the same soft smile. She never rushed anyone. She believed books should be discovered slowly. That afternoon was colder than usual. The sky was gray, and the street outside looked empty. She had just finished rearranging a shelf near the back when the bell above the door rang. The sound was light, but it caught her attention. She looked up, expecting one of her regular customers. Instead, a teenage girl stood just inside the doorway. The girl did not step forward right away. She held the door as if she might leave at any second. Her jacket was thin and worn, not enough for the cold weather. Her shoes looked too big, and her hair was pulled back in a loose, messy way. The owner noticed the girl's eyes first. They moved around the room quickly, taking everything in. There was fear there, but also curiosity. The girl's hands were shaking slightly. She looked tired, the kind of tired that sleep does not fix. The owner walked from behind the counter slowly, not wanting to scare her. She had seen people like this before, though not often. Some came in just to warm up. Some wanted to use the bathroom. Some only needed a place to sit for a few minutes. "Hello," the owner said gently. "You're welcome to look around." The girl nodded but did not move. After a moment, she took a small step forward. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "I was wondering, are you hiring?" The question surprised the owner. She had never had anyone ask that so directly, especially someone so young. She looked the girl over again, this time more carefully. The girl could not have been more than 16 or 17. Her face was thin, and her cheeks were red from the cold. "I'm not sure," the owner replied honestly. "What kind of work are you looking for?" "Anything," the girl said quickly. "Cleaning, sorting books, helping customers. I learn fast." There was a pause. The owner felt a tight feeling in her chest. She could tell this was not a casual question. The girl's eyes were fixed on her now, filled with hope and worry at the same time. "Do you have any experience?" the owner asked. The girl shook her head. "Not in a store. But I like books. And I'm careful." The owner believed her. There was something honest about the way she spoke. She was polite, not demanding. Still, the owner hesitated. Hiring someone was a responsibility. And this girl looked like she was carrying more than just the cold with her. "Can I ask why you need a job so urgently?" the owner said softly. The girl looked down at the floor. For a moment, the owner thought she would leave. Then the girl took a breath. "I don't have anywhere to stay right now," she said. "I need money for food. And maybe a place to sleep later." The words were simple, but they hit hard. The owner felt her throat tighten. She thought of her own son at that age. She thought of warm dinners and clean beds. She thought of how unfair life could be. "I see," she said quietly. The bookstore was silent again. Outside, a car passed by, splashing through a puddle. Inside, the owner's mind raced. She did not usually make fast decisions. She liked to think things through. But something about this moment felt important. "Do you have time today?" the owner asked. "Yes," the girl said right away. "All day?" The owner nodded slowly. "I can offer you a short trial shift. Just for today. We'll see how it goes." The girl's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes," the owner said. "I can't promise anything long-term yet. But you can help me for a few hours." "Thank you," the girl said, her voice shaking. "Thank you so much." The owner smiled. "You can start by helping me sort these books. And later, I'll show you how to use the register." The girl stepped further into the store now, as if she finally believed she was allowed to be there. She took off her jacket carefully and folded it, placing it on a chair near the counter. The owner noticed how carefully she did everything, as if afraid to make a mistake. As they worked, the owner watched her from time to time. The girl handled the books gently, reading the titles, sometimes smiling at a cover. She asked questions when she was unsure. She worked harder than many adults the owner had known. They spoke a little while they worked. Nothing too personal. The girl said she liked stories that felt real. The owner said she liked books that stayed with you long after you finished them. After a while, the owner made 2 cups of tea and handed one to the girl. The girl held it with both hands, letting the warmth sink in. "Thank you," she said again. The owner nodded. She did not know why, but she felt like this was only the beginning of something much bigger. She had no idea that this quiet afternoon, in her quiet bookstore, was about to bring the past back into her life in ways she never expected. The girl returned the next morning before the store even opened. She stood outside the door, hands tucked into her sleeves, breathing into her palms for warmth. When the owner unlocked the door, she looked surprised, as if she had not expected to be welcomed back. "You're early," the owner said gently. "I didn't want to be late," the girl replied. That became a pattern over the next few days. The girl always arrived early and never left before being told she could go. She worked quietly, rarely stopping unless asked. She did not complain, even when tasks were boring or tiring. The owner noticed everything. The girl was careful in a way that came from experience, not training. She flinched slightly whenever the phone rang. If a customer raised their voice, even in excitement, the girl stiffened. When a uniformed officer walked past the window one afternoon, she stepped back from the glass without realizing she was doing it. The owner pretended not to notice at first, but she did. They spoke in small pieces. Simple things. What shelves needed dusting? Which books sold best? Which ones never sold at all? The girl listened closely, remembering everything. She learned fast, just as she had promised. One afternoon, as they sorted old paperbacks in the back room, the owner asked, "Where are you staying these days?" The girl's hands paused. Just for a second. Then she kept working. "Here and there," she said. The owner did not push. "Have you been on your own long?" The girl nodded. "A few months." That answer stayed with the owner long after the store closed that day. A few months felt like a lifetime for someone so young. She wondered where the girl slept at night. She wondered who had failed her. Over time, the girl opened up a little more. Not about her past, but about the present. She spoke about knowing which shelters were full before sunset. About how cold nights felt longer when you did not know where you would end up. She talked about being hungry in a quiet way, like it was normal. The owner listened and felt something heavy settle in her chest. When the subject of family came up, the girl shut down completely. It happened one evening when a customer mentioned visiting their daughter. The girl excused herself and went to the back room without a word. Later, the owner found her stacking boxes that did not need stacking. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to," the owner said. The girl nodded. After a long pause, she said, "My mother is gone." That was all she would say. No details. No explanation. The owner did not ask more. Some losses were too deep for words. At night, Alone in her apartment, the owner thought about her own past. About her son when he was younger. About the anger, the distance, the mistakes she still regretted. He had not lived on the streets, but he had been lost in other ways. She remembered nights waiting for him to come home, wondering if she had done something wrong. Those memories softened something inside her. The next morning, she brought an extra sandwich and left it on the counter without saying anything. The girl noticed but did not comment. She simply ate it slowly, like she was afraid it might be taken away. A day later, the owner brought a warm sweater. "Someone left this behind," she said casually. "You can have it." The girl hesitated, then accepted it with quiet gratitude. The owner adjusted the girl's hours so she could come in earlier and leave later, especially when the weather turned bad. She paid her in cash at the end of each shift. Not much, but enough for food. Enough to survive. The girl never asked for more. She never complained. But the owner could see the difference. The girl's shoulders relaxed a little. Her eyes lost some of their sharp edge. One evening, as they closed the store together, the owner said, "You're doing well here." The girl looked surprised. "I am." "Yes," the owner said. "You belong here as much as anyone." The girl looked down, her face unreadable. But when she spoke, her voice was steady. "Thank you for not asking too many questions." The owner smiled. Everyone has their own time. As the days passed, the bookstore felt different. Warmer. Fuller. The owner did not know exactly why, but she felt it. She had started this kindness thinking it was temporary. Just help where she could. She did not yet realize how deeply this girl was already woven into her life. Or how the scars the girl carried would soon connect to truths the owner had buried for years. The paperwork was something the owner had put off longer than she should have. She was not used to forms or official steps. Her shop had always been simple, and so had her life lately. But one morning after opening the store, she placed a thin folder on the counter and decided it was time. "We should make this proper," she said gently. "Just basic information." The girl nodded without enthusiasm. She sat on the stool by the counter, holding the pen as if it weighed more than it should. Her posture was straight, but her shoulders were tense. They went through the first few questions easily. Name. Age. No address listed, just a dash. The owner did not comment. She pretended not to notice. Then they reached the last page. "Emergency contact," the owner said. "In case something happens." The girl froze. The pen hovered above the paper. Seconds passed. The bookstore felt suddenly too quiet. The owner could hear the soft ticking of the old clock on the wall. "You don't have to fill it in if you can't," the owner added quickly. The girl swallowed. "I'll write something." She bent over the paper, shielding it slightly with her arm. Her handwriting was neat but careful, like she was afraid of making the wrong mark. When she finished, she slid the paper back across the counter without looking up. The owner glanced down. The name stared back at her. For a moment, the room tilted. She read it again, slower this time, hoping she had imagined it. But the letters were clear. Too clear. Her fingers tightened around the folder. She felt a cold wave move through her chest, the kind that came with memories she had worked hard to bury. A face flashed in her mind. A voice. A night she had never spoken about. She looked up at the girl, but the girl was watching the floor, unaware of the storm she had just started. "That's fine," the owner said, though her voice sounded far away even to herself. "Thank you." She stood up too quickly, knocking the stool behind her. "I need to check something in the back," she added. The girl nodded, still not looking up. In the back room, the owner leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. Her heart was pounding. 16 years. It had been 16 years since she had last heard that name spoken out loud. She told herself it was a coincidence. Names repeated. People shared names all the time. That had to be it. But her hands were shaking. She returned to the counter a few minutes later, forcing a smile. The girl seemed unchanged, still quiet, still careful. The owner watched her closely now, noticing small things she had ignored before. The shape of her eyes. The way she tilted her head when listening. The rest of the day passed in a blur. That evening, after locking up, the owner climbed the stairs to her apartment. She did not turn on the lights right away. She sat at the small table by the window, staring at the city outside. Her tea went cold untouched. She told herself again that it meant nothing. Still, she pulled out an old box from the closet. The box was dusty and heavy. She had not opened it in years. Inside were papers she had sworn never to look at again. Old letters. Photos. Documents folded so many times the creases were worn thin. Her hands trembled as she searched through them. She found a photo first. A younger version of herself stood beside another woman. Both were smiling, though the memory behind that smile was complicated. The other woman's name echoed in her mind. She sat back, breath shallow. There were records too. Old forms. Dates. Addresses that no longer existed. She read them slowly, her dread growing with each familiar detail. 16 years ago, her life had nearly fallen apart. She had trusted someone she should not have. She had made a choice she could never take back. And then everything had ended badly. She had moved away after that. Changed her routine. Built this quiet life brick by brick, hoping the past would stay buried. But now it had a face. A young face that worked in her bookstore and drank tea at her counter. The owner pressed her palms against her eyes. "No," she whispered into the empty room. "It can't be." Yet the pieces lined up too easily. She stayed up late that night, reading and rereading old records. Comparing dates. Counting years. Each answer led to another question she was afraid to ask. When she finally went to bed, sleep did not come. Her thoughts circled endlessly. If she was right, everything would change. If she was wrong, she would still never look at the girl the same way again. Downstairs, the bookstore was dark and silent. And in the owner's mind, the name that should not have mattered echoed louder with every passing hour. Sleep never really came that night. The owner drifted in and out of shallow rest, pulled awake again and again by memories she had trained herself to ignore. When morning light crept through the thin curtains, she gave up and sat at the edge of the bed, hands folded, breathing slowly. She had not thought about her son like this in years. Not deeply. Not honestly. At 17, he had changed almost overnight. Once talkative and curious, he became distant and sharp. He stayed out late. He stopped answering questions. When she tried to talk, he shut down or lashed out. She told herself it was just a phase. Everyone said that. But it felt different. He stopped bringing friends home. He guarded his phone like it held secrets that might explode if touched. Sometimes she heard him whispering late at night, voice low and urgent. When she asked who he was talking to, he said it was no one. Then there was the girl. He never brought her inside, but the owner had seen her once or twice from the window. A young woman standing across the street, hands in her pockets, waiting. Dark hair pulled back. A serious expression. They spoke quietly when they met, always watching the surroundings, as if afraid of being seen. When the owner asked about her, her son brushed it off. "Just someone I know," he said. That was the beginning of the end. One evening, after a tense argument about school and money, he announced he was leaving town. He said he had a job lined up. Said he needed independence. Said he would be fine. She remembered standing in the kitchen, frozen, as he packed a bag. "You can't just go," she had said. "I can," he replied. "And I am." He hugged her before he left. The hug was quick, stiff. Not the way he used to hold her. "I'll call," he said. At first, he did. Once a week. Then once a month. Short calls. Little detail. He said he was busy. He said things were complicated. Whenever she asked where he was staying, he changed the subject. Then the calls stopped. Letters came instead. A few lines. Always vague. Always distant. Until those stopped too. She searched for him. Called friends. Tracked old contacts. She even went to the police once, but he was nearly an adult when he left. They said he had the right to disappear if he chose to. Eventually, she stopped asking questions that had no answers. Life went on because it had to. Now, sitting alone in her apartment, the owner felt the weight of those years press down on her. The name on the paper had reopened everything. She stood and paced the small room. The girl her son had been seeing had a name. She remembered it now. She had heard it once, shouted during an argument on the phone. She had seen it scribbled on a scrap of paper left on the counter. It was the same name. Her stomach tightened. She thought about the timing. The dates she had looked at the night before. The age of the girl working in her bookstore. The months the girl had said she had been alone. A terrible idea formed slowly, like fog rolling in. What if her son had not left alone? What if he had run away with that girl? And what if something had gone wrong? The owner sat back down, suddenly weak. She pressed her hands together, as if that might steady her thoughts. She had always believed her son would come back someday. That he just needed time. That one day the phone would ring, and his voice would be older, calmer. But what if there was a reason he never returned? Downstairs, the store waited to be opened. The girl would arrive soon, as she always did. The owner felt a sharp twist of fear at the thought of seeing her. When she finally unlocked the door, her hands were shaking. The girl came in a few minutes later, brushing snow from her sleeves. She smiled slightly, unaware of the storm inside the owner. "Good morning," the girl said. "Good morning," the owner replied, forcing her voice to stay steady. As the day went on, the owner watched her more closely than ever. She noticed the familiar expressions. The stubborn set of her jaw. The way she laughed quietly at something she read. Things she had seen before. The owner felt torn between fear and an aching pull she could not explain. She wanted to ask questions. She wanted to shake the girl and demand the truth. She wanted to protect her from something she could not yet name. By closing time, her head throbbed. That night, alone again, the owner whispered the truth she had never allowed herself to say. "If you are his child," she said into the darkness, "what does that make me?" The thought terrified her. Because if it was true, then the past had not just returned. It had been standing in her bookstore all along. The owner waited 2 days before asking anything. She needed the time to steady herself, to make sure her voice would not betray what her heart already believed. During those days, she watched the girl closely, noticing how easily she fit into the space, how naturally she belonged there. On the third afternoon, the store was quiet. Only one customer browsed near the front, and the radio played softly behind the counter. The owner wiped the surface slowly, buying herself courage. "Can I ask you something?" she said at last. The girl looked up at her, alert but calm. "Sure." The owner chose her words carefully. "You mentioned before that your mother is gone." The girl nodded. Her expression did not change much, but her eyes dimmed slightly. "She passed away a few years ago." "I'm sorry," the owner said. The girl shrugged gently. "It wasn't sudden. She was sick for a long time." They stood in silence for a moment. The owner felt her chest tighten. "Did you have anyone else?" she asked. "Family, I mean." The girl shook her head. "It was just us." "And your father?" The question came out softer than a whisper. The girl let out a small breath. "I never knew him." The owner's hands froze. "My mom used to talk about him sometimes," the girl continued, her voice distant, as if she were speaking about a story she had heard too many times. "She said he left before I was born. That he wanted a different life." The owner felt the room tilt again. "She never said his name?" the owner asked. "No," the girl said. "Only that he ran away." The words cut deeper than anger ever could. The owner nodded slowly, afraid to say more. She turned away, pretending to adjust a stack of books. Her thoughts raced. The dates the girl had shared. The age. The timing of her son's disappearance. Everything fit too perfectly. That evening, after the girl left, the owner sat alone in the store long after closing. She stared at the counter where the girl had stood moments earlier. Her hands trembled as the truth settled fully into her bones. The girl was her granddaughter, and her son had abandoned them both. The realization brought no relief, only grief. Grief for the child who had grown up without support. Grief for the woman who had faced illness and hardship alone. Grief for the son she had lost twice. She wondered how many nights the girl's mother had waited, hoping he would return. She wondered how many promises had been broken. The owner felt guilt rise like a heavy wave. Had she missed something back then? Had she failed to see the danger, the desperation? She had always believed her son would not disappear without reason. Now she knew the reason. He had chosen to run. The owner pressed her palms against the counter, steadying herself. The girl did not know. She carried the truth without understanding it, bearing the weight of choices she never made. That night, the owner did not sleep. She sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker. She thought about what came next. About whether truth was always a gift. If she told the girl, everything would change. If she stayed silent, she would be lying every time she smiled at her. By morning, one thing was clear. No matter what her son had done, this girl would not be abandoned again. Not on her watch. The truth did not settle quietly. It followed the owner through every moment of the day, pressing on her chest, making even simple tasks feel heavy. She smiled for customers. She answered questions. She rang up sales. All the while, her thoughts stayed fixed on the girl moving carefully between the shelves. Every time the girl laughed softly at something she read, the owner felt a sharp mix of warmth and pain. Every time the girl said thank you, the guilt grew deeper. She told herself she needed time. But time felt like a luxury she no longer had. That night, after the girl left, the owner locked the door and sat alone in the darkened store. She reached into a drawer beneath the counter and pulled out an old notebook. Inside were numbers she had never erased. Her son's number was still there. She stared at it for a long time. Her hand shook as she picked up the phone. She told herself she would hang up if it rang too long. She told herself she would not leave a message. It rang once, twice. Then someone answered. Hello. The voice was older, tired, but unmistakable. Her breath caught. It's me. Silence stretched between them. I didn't think you'd ever call, he said finally. Neither did she. I need to ask you something, she said. And I need you to be honest. A pause. Then, about what? About the girl you left town with. The line went quiet. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. She closed her eyes. You do. Another pause. Longer this time. She had a child, the owner said, her voice trembling. Didn't she? No, he said too quickly. I mean. His voice broke. The sound hit her harder than anger ever could. Yes, he whispered. She did. The owner felt the floor drop away beneath her. You knew, she said. Yes. And you left anyway. He did not answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. I was scared. I was young. I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know how to face you. So you disappeared, she said. I thought they'd be better without me, he said. I thought, if I stayed away, I couldn't mess things up. Tears slid down her face. She died, the owner said quietly. The girl is alone now. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. Then silence. Heavy and full. I didn't know, he said finally. I swear I didn't know she died. But you knew about the child, the owner said. Yes. The truth hung between them, raw and undeniable. After they hung up, the owner sat with the phone in her lap for a long time. She did not feel relief. Only a deep, aching sadness. She thought about the years she had spent waiting. About how she had searched, then stopped. How she had accepted his absence instead of fighting harder. She had told herself he needed space. She wondered now if she had simply been afraid. Afraid of what she might find. That night, she faced her reflection in the dark window. "I should have looked harder," she whispered. "I should have asked more questions." The guilt was not only his. It was hers too. And now, standing at the edge of a truth 16 years in the making, she knew there was no more room for silence. The next choice she made would change everything. The owner chose a quiet moment. The store was closed, the lights dimmed, the street outside wrapped in early evening stillness. She made 2 cups of tea and set them on the small table near the window. "Can we talk?" she asked. The girl hesitated, then nodded. She sat across from the owner, hands folded tightly in her lap. She sensed something was different. Adults only used that tone when something serious was coming. The owner took a breath. Then another. "What I'm about to tell you may hurt," she said. "But I won't lie to you." The girl's shoulders stiffened. "Okay." The owner looked at her carefully, memorizing her face, knowing there was no turning back. "The name you wrote down," she began. "Your mother's name. I knew her." The girl frowned. "You did?" "Yes," the owner said softly. "A long time ago." Silence stretched. "There's more," the owner continued. "I didn't just know her. I knew the man she loved." The girl's eyes narrowed. "What does that have to do with me?" The owner's voice trembled now. "Because that man was my son." The words fell between them like glass shattering. The girl stared at her, frozen. "That's not possible," she said quickly. "My mom said he left before I was born." "She was telling the truth," the owner replied. "He did leave." The girl shook her head. "No. You're wrong." "I wish I were," the owner whispered. The girl stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "So what are you saying?" she demanded. "That you're related to me?" "Yes," the owner said. "You are my granddaughter." The girl laughed once, sharp and empty. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." The girl's hands clenched into fists. "Then where was he?" she shouted. "Where was your son when my mom was sick? When we were hungry? When I was sleeping outside?" The owner felt each question like a blow. "I don't know," she said. "And I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix anything," the girl cried. Tears streamed down her face now, hot and uncontrolled. "My whole life was a lie. You're telling me I had family this whole time and no one came for me." The owner stood as well, though her legs felt weak. "I failed you," she said. "I failed to look hard enough. I failed to ask the right questions. I will never defend what he did." The girl's voice broke. "I was alone." The owner reached out, then stopped, afraid to cross a line. "You shouldn't have been," she said. "And I am so sorry that you were." The girl sank back into the chair, covering her face. Her shoulders shook as the grief finally spilled free. Years of anger, confusion, and loss poured out in quiet sobs. The owner knelt in front of her. "I can't change the past," she said. "But I can sit with you now. I won't walk away." For a long moment, the girl did not respond. Then, slowly, she lowered her hands. Her eyes were red, her expression shattered. "You won't leave?" she asked. "No," the owner said firmly. "Not again. Not ever." The girl leaned forward, not into an embrace, but close enough to share the same air. For the first time, her pain was witnessed. Shared. She was no longer carrying it alone. The days after the truth came out were quiet, but not empty. There were no big decisions right away. No sudden changes. Just small moments filled with careful understanding. The girl did not ask to meet her father. "I'm not ready," she said one morning, her voice steady but tired. "You don't have to be," the owner replied. "Not now. Not ever if you choose." That answer seemed to ease something inside the girl. She nodded and went back to shelving books, placing each one carefully in its place. A few days later, the owner cleared out the spare room in her apartment. It was small, but clean and warm. Fresh sheets. A lamp by the bed. A stack of books on the nightstand. "You can stay here for a while," the owner said. "No pressure. Just until you feel steady." The girl stood in the doorway, silent. Then she whispered, "Thank you." Living together felt strange at first. They moved around each other carefully, learning habits and boundaries. But there was comfort in the routine. Shared meals. Quiet evenings. The sound of pages turning in the same room. Downstairs, the bookstore changed too. It was no longer just a place of work. It became a refuge. A space where the girl could breathe without fear of being asked to leave. Where warmth and safety were not temporary. Customers noticed the difference. The store felt fuller somehow, more alive. The girl greeted people with more confidence now. Her shoulders no longer hunched. Her eyes lifted. Some wounds did not disappear. There were nights the girl woke from bad dreams. Days when grief came back without warning. The owner learned not to rush those moments. She learned that healing did not mean fixing. Sometimes it just meant staying. One evening, as the store closed, the owner watched the girl shelving books near the window. The streetlights cast a soft glow around her. She moved with calm purpose. 16 years of silence had led to this quiet moment. The owner understood now that truth did not heal everything all at once. It did not erase pain or replace what was lost. But it opened a door. It created a path forward. And this time, no one was walking it alone. The girl placed the last book on the shelf and turned, meeting the owner's eyes. There was still sadness there. Still questions. But there was also something new. Belonging. The bell above the door rang softly as they locked up for the night. Inside the bookstore, among the rows of stories, a new one had quietly begun.